Well, wouldn't you just know it? The judge, the judge that Trump appointed, who didn't have the ethics to recuse herself when she was selected in his case, is acting unethically. Shocking. Also shocking, in an equally sarcastic way, is that our Department of Justice seems more interested in a clean cover-up than actually seeking justice for the American people. Jack Smith, in my opinion, is just Merrick Garland with the foreknowledge of having seen Merrick Garland. As in, if Merrick Garland had seen the Democrat cover-up of Republican crimes that he did before he was put into office, he would have done just a little bit more effort to make it seem like he was trying to get a conviction. But the reality, in my opinion, is that these centrist Dem appointees, either explicitly, in which case we should pursue it in a court of law, or more likely implicitly, are made to understand that they're not there for you, they're not there for me, they're not there to protect any of us. They are there to protect the status quo. Status quo is that fancy people are not subjected to the criminal justice system in the United States. That's just for you and me. That's just if we get uppity. No, fancy people, no matter how vile, they're never supposed to be punished. You cannot do that. The only thing you're supposed to do, if you're Jack Smith, if you're Merrick Garland, if you're Joe Biden, if you're anybody who has any say in who gets appointed to the bench, who gets the handcuffs put on them, the only thing you're supposed to do is make it look vaguely like you tried. Put in 1/8 of an ass's effort. And then tell the people, well, the wheels of justice turn slowly. So slowly, in fact, that you, the person who caused you harm, and your great-grandchildren will all be dust by the time it's quietly acknowledged that a crime was committed against you, and the person who committed it was allowed to live their whole life without consequences for it. That's how it's supposed to work. That's the impression I get, frankly. Here's what I mean.
Betsy, this is such a hallmark Trump crime because he doesn't deny the facts, especially the ones that make it criminal. Doesn't deny taking the documents, doesn't deny keeping the documents, doesn't deny the fact of the photos of where the documents were held. His only twist on it, and you can see it sort of making the smoke start to come out of the ears of people like Sean Hannity when he interviews about it, is he says his version of when you're president, they let you do it. That's it.
Yeah, that's right. And that's one of the things, excuse me, that Jack Smith highlighted in the draft jury instructions that he wrote, of course, following an order from Judge Cannon that he simultaneously argued was borderline nonsensical. In one of these draft jury directions that Smith proposed, he basically said the jury will be directed to find Trump not guilty if they decide that these are personal records. Oh, and by the way, Trump's lawyers are arguing that everything that left the White House under his watch and didn't go to the National Archives is a personal record. From this,
I'm not going to give this person or anybody else that appears on the screen, or yours truly, the dignity of finding a fair frame to present them in. I don't think they're full-throated enough about how awful this is. For context, if you're not familiar, Judge Aileen Cannon. Eileen Cannon? Come on, Eileen Cannon. She was put she was given her position as a federal judge by Donald Trump. Then, during the investigation into the stolen documents, the investigation, not the criminal case, the fact-finding portion, when the FBI raided Trump's house, Mar-a-Lago, a club open to randos, she ruled that they were not allowed to do that and said, you have to give him back. You have to give him back the documents he stole, even though it was clearly the government's documents. That was appealed to the 11th Circuit, the 11th where she is, and the 11th Circuit said Eileen Cannon is wildly wrong in this. So wrong, in fact, that we question her qualifications to be a judge. Yet nothing was done. It wasn't thrown off the bench. She should have been, could have been. Then Trump got very lucky, suspiciously lucky, I would say, because when it came time to actually try this case, because of course her name came up as the judge that was going to be assigned to it. You know, it's a lottery. There's 15 judges, I think. Her name came up. 1 in 15 chance. I question that. I wanted an investigation into that. It won't happen. At least not unless we fight for it. Like everything else. Like everything else in our justice system. Unless we fight for it, these things which are just supposed to happen, which are just supposed to be fair, will not be. But okay. Her name came up. She was assigned to the case. Jack Smith did not immediately, as he should have, he did not immediately insist that she recuse herself. So a bunch of pundits say, oh, well, he can't. Oh, he can't. He's got to give her a chance to corrupt the case first. He's got to let it be delayed unnecessarily a bunch of times first. She has to spoil this case first. And then, and only then, can he react. Okay, we sat on our hands. I guess that's how it works. It works poorly, but I guess that's how it works. Now, what has Eileen Cannon done? She said that you have to give jury instructions that insist that Trump be found not guilty unless very specific circumstances are met. These do not. You might think, well, is that what the law says? No. No. That's just her pulling that out of nowhere. She is trying to get a jury sat in this case. You know, you select the jurors, down they sit, and then issue instructions that say, here is a much narrower set of circumstances that mean you are allowed to convict this guy than is actually necessary, because at that point, cannot be appealed. At that, I mean, it can't be tried again. It's double jeopardy. In other words, she's throwing this for Trump. As we said from the start, she would. What has Jack Smith done about it? Not a thing. Not a thing. I am positive that we're going to be told by somebody representing the Department of Justice, well, they're going to sit down to do their podcast a year after Donald Trump has been allowed to walk on this. And they're going to say, well, you peons, you goddamn peasants just don't understand. You stupid simpletons just don't get it. That's the way it must work. It must work that way. We were following the letter of the law. And then you'll say, really, the letter of the law? And they'll say, well, technically, it was a one sentence written on a sticky note by the Attorney General 7 Attorney Generals back, saying something along the lines of vaguely, the law doesn't apply to rich people. That's, we're calling it a memo. So not the letter of the law. Just whim. Just whim. That's all that is. Oh, the traditions are so important, though. Then you should have made them a law. The OLC memo saying you can't charge a sitting president. That's not a law. That's just some unelected, their opinion at the time in the 70s. Somebody with no chutzpah just decided that, but it prevented us from seeking justice while Trump was in office. Again, not a law that you or I, in a representative democracy, got to weigh in on. That is what is happening here. That is what we are, I promise you, that's what we're going to find out, was Jack Smith's reasoning. That's the thing. It's sort of like those folks that read the Bible and come away with wildly unrelated to the messages of the Bible conclusions, because they squint until they see what they want to see. We have never had a non-Republican as an attorney general, which means we've never had a fair attorney general, because I have never seen a Republican who is anything except corrupt. Here's the consequences. Here's what happens when you allow such a person, Judge Aileen Cannon, to just make a mockery of the rules of the court.
Standpoint of Jack Smith's team, this is an unwinnable situation, and the judge might as well, if she really believes this and really wants to stick to her guns on the legal analysis that she is very seriously entertaining, might as well just call the entire thing off. And clearly, in the view of the Justice Department, that would be preposterous. And in the view of a whole host of legal experts, including Bill Barr, that would be preposterous. This is where, for Jack Smith and for his team, they are in a very unusual situation. And of course, that's why we're seeing this unusual pre-gaming of, again, an unusual appellate strategy. From Trump's standpoint, making this an argument about the law rather than about the facts is helpful for two reasons. First, of course, it certainly seems that in the view of him and his lawyers, the facts are not super helpful. And second, having this become a drawn-out legal fight only ratchets up the likelihood that this thing won't go to trial before Election Day. Of course, the complexity for Jack Smith and his team is once they file an appeal, once they go to the 11th Circuit to try to get involved, that also extends the timeline. And all of this.
I don't care. Nor should you. The time to decide whether or not this thing goes to trial before Election Day, which, by the way, we had a right to. That was literally the moment the crime was discovered. They should have acted like there was a ticking clock right then. Instead, Trump was given an obscene amount of time to defy the law. I want a 9/11 style Truth and Reconciliation Commission into Joe Biden, into the Justice Department under Joe Biden. Did this prick seriously do what it appears that he has done? Because I'll tell you what it appears like he's done. It looks like all the people that Biden is responsible for putting into power dragged their feet on prosecuting Trump until it was clear that he was going to be running for president for the Republicans. Not until he declared. Trump declared that like the day before it was made clear that he was going to be charged. But they just about waited until the statute of limitations had expired on most of these crimes before anything was done. It looked like they were going to give him a pass altogether on some of the worst ones. Get progressives. Go to the ballot box. Get progressives into office. I hope you also vote for Joe Biden. Let's kill two birds with one stone. I would like to have that OLC memo rescinded officially. I would like a truth commission on what happened. Why does it take multiple years to prosecute somebody for a crime if they are rich and they are involved in politics, when it would take 2 seconds to prosecute the same crime when they are what the powerful people view as a nobody? You know, you and me. If we take classified documents, what happens? In about 30 seconds, SWAT team kicks in the door, tosses in a smoke grenade, windows get shattered, they shoot the dog, they tase your spouse, they beat you near unconscious with a billy club, handcuff you, then mace you, then drag you out, your skull rattling against the stairs as they pull you down your cement steps. And they throw your bloody carcass in the back of a vehicle, and you spend 20 years in prison if you make it that far, if you survived the beating you got. That's what happens to you and me. Trump, he's having parties with Russian spies at Mar-a-Lago. That's the difference in treatment. No more. If Biden, I don't think he's dumb enough to have done this, but if Biden had a senile moment and actually said out loud to Merrick Garland, slow your roll on this, I want him in prison. I'll deal with Kamala Harris for the 2 remaining years by the time we get such a commission finished, yada, yada. I'll deal with that. If Biden played with our democracy like this, I want him in prison. Trump, it goes without saying. I want his last days to be spent in cement, surrounded by it. I don't want him to see the sun without his own little vertical series of eclipses. Got to peer through bars to see the sun, of course. But Joe Biden, too. This is the height of corruption. What do they go on to say in this? They go on to say, well, it's not just that Trump might get away with this because of what Judge Cannon has done here. It's that she's even tried to do it. I'll sum up a 9-minute video for you by turning it into a 20-minute video. It's that she's even tried to do it. That damage is done. It can get worse. It will get worse if Jack Smith does not at least try to get her kicked off this case. But there has already been horrible damage done. Damage that will require repair. That will require we write new laws to ensure it cannot happen again. So that we send a message to the people who would try it next time. Now the precedent has been set. If Joe Biden appoints a judge, that judge doesn't have to recuse themselves in a case involving Joe Biden. That's insane. That's insane. If that judge throws the case for Joe Biden and the Justice Department just doesn't feel like seeking justice For you and me? Oh well. Forget Biden. 2 election cycles down the line, DeSantis gets into office. And he just goes for it. He says, exterminate all the Muslims. Get rid of them. You know what? All these documents, I've just decided they're mine. Yeah, these nuclear secrets. You think that's an exaggeration? That's what Trump had, amongst other things. War plans. All these, I just decided they're mine. Let's make sure that I store them in the deepest parts of the worst state you can imagine. Oh, did the judge that came up, did that wind up being a sycophant for me? Oh, well. That damage has been done. Shame on all of us. Us for allowing this country to degrade in this manner. And them for seeing the opening and taking advantage of it. It's pathetic. Don't worry. I got a what you can do on this. Corrupt government officials are cowards. They cannot stand. Yeah, let me do I haven't done this impression in about 6 months, so I'll do my regular Merrick Garland impression. Cowards take advantage of that. They cannot stand to be seen. I don't think Jack Smith is any different. I put his contact information in the description. Use it. Give him a call, write him a letter, write him an email. Tell him that his failure to demand Eileen Cannon be kicked off this case is an embarrassment. Tell him that he is not seeking justice for you, and you see that. Tell him he's not a worthy representative. Tell him he is a failure. The law is there to protect you. He represents the law. He has failed. Tell him he must demand immediately that Eileen Cannon be removed. Whether he does or doesn't, you will have to look yourself in the mirror for the rest of your life and know that the person looking back at you either spoke up or failed to. Write Jack Smith. Do it tonight.